Roman emperors were often as ruthless as they were revered. Even in this legacy, Emperor Commodus stands out, not for his virtues, but for his notorious rule that spiraled into decadence and cruelty. Far from the stoic wisdom of his father, Marcus Aurelius, Commodus turned his back on the responsibilities of leadership, indulged in personal excesses that would ultimately disgrace the imperial throne. His reign, marked not by the expansion of territories or the flourishing of culture, but by a sadistic streak that blurred the line between ruler and tyrant. Commodus's Rome was a city of fear and spectacle, where the emperor himself descended into the arena not just as a patron, but as a perverse performer who found joy in the suffering of others. His sadistic tendencies were not confined to the gladiatorial combats. They permeated his governance, turning the palace into a stage for his cruel whims. Emperor Commodus, notorious for his brutality, rivaled only Nero in his cruelty. He initially co-ruled with his father, Marcus Aurelius, for the first 3 years of his reign before becoming the sole emperor in 180 AD. Marcus Aurelius, celebrated as the last of the 5 good emperors, was a committed stoic whose philosophy deeply influenced his governance, emphasizing self-control over base impulses of anger and desire. In stark contrast, Commodus lacked these virtues and was quick to exploit his imperial power to indulge his personal whims. His ascension as sole ruler marked the end of the Pax Romana, the era of peace, justice, and prosperity that had flourished under the guidance of the 5 good emperors. Commodus, the 10th of 14 children and the sole surviving son of Marcus Aurelius, was raised under the guidance of Galen of Pergamon, the renowned Roman physician and philosopher. As a member of the Roman nobility, Commodus received extensive education in philosophy and the intellectual disciplines of his time. His early years were spent accompanying his father on military campaigns against Rome's barbarian adversaries. Marcus Aurelius passed away unexpectedly on March 18, 180 AD, while stationed at the Danubian front, leaving Commodus to assume the throne as the sole emperor. Even from a young age, signs of Commodus's moral shortcomings were evident. In one notable incident, when a servant failed to sufficiently heat his bathwater, the young Commodus, not yet having the authority to order executions, demanded that the servant be thrown into the furnace. To placate him without causing harm, lambskins were burnt in the furnace to produce a smell that mimicked human burning, deceiving him into believing his cruel order had been carried out. Unlike his father, who was frequently engaged in battle against Rome's numerous enemies, Commodus's reign was marked by military peace. However, despite the absence of external conflicts, his governance was plagued by intense internal strife and political turmoil. This unrest was driven by Commodus's own paranoia and greed, creating a chaotic atmosphere within the walls of Rome. The emperor, who was born to rule, but chose to terrorize. Despite quickly ending the Marcomannic Wars that had consumed much of his father's reign, Commodus's inclination for violence was evident early in his rule. By the year 182, his sister Lucilla, dissatisfied with her status as a private citizen and harboring a deep resentment towards her sister-in-law, Brutia Crispina, orchestrated an assassination plot against Commodus. Lucilla aimed to replace the erratic emperor with herself and her husband in power. She and her fellow conspirators were deeply concerned about Commodus's behavior, viewing him as a threat to the empire's safety and stability. The assassination attempt on Commodus failed disastrously. As the assassin emerged from his hiding place, he prematurely declared, "Here is what the Senate sends to you." These words alerted the guards, who swiftly intervened, disarming the would-be assassin and sparing Commodus from harm. For orchestrating the plot, Lucilla was exiled to the island of Capri, where she was later executed. In a harsh response to the attempted assassination, Commodus subjected his remaining sisters to abuse, even though they were not involved in the plot. He also started a relationship with one of his father's cousins and named his favorite concubine after his own mother, Faustina the Younger. Commodus's wife, Brutia Crispina, also fell victim to his paranoia. After 10 years of marriage, she was accused of adultery and, mirroring Lucilla's fate, was exiled to Capri and eventually executed. During his reign, Commodus was responsible for numerous deaths, either directly or through the actions of his agents. His paranoia deepened following an unsuccessful assassination attempt, leading him to perceive threats in every shadow. In the aftermath of his chamberlain Sauterus' murder, Commodus' suspicion escalated, prompting him to order the execution of numerous perceived enemies, including every member of the Quintili family, effectively eradicating their lineage. He also sanctioned the death of his own cousin, the noblewoman Vitracia Faustina, whom he irrationally implicated in a supposed conspiracy. Commodus was infamous for his voracious physical appetites. His lovers included married women, prostitutes, freedwomen, and slaves, selected purely for their physical appearance. He openly purchased women and boys from both nobility and commoners to satisfy his desires. These individuals were essentially at his disposal to fulfill his sexual demands, and were often treated little better than slaves. Commodus' reign was characterized by decadence, with him hosting extravagant parties in the palace and bathhouses, while his confidant, Perverse, managed the empire's political affairs, allowing the emperor to indulge unabatedly in his hedonistic lifestyle. Gladiatorial combats. Unlike his father, who was a skilled military leader, Commodus lacked similar accomplishments, but yearned to be perceived as a formidable warrior. He fancied himself the reincarnation of Hercules, a belief that fueled his frequent participation in gladiatorial contests. However, these appearances were far from genuine contests. Commodus ensured his victories were predetermined, turning the arena into a stage for his vanity. He even charged the state a hefty fee of 1 million sesterces for each appearance. As a result of his repeated performances, which totaled over 700, the Roman treasury incurred a staggering loss of 700 million sesterces. This indulgence placed an immense financial burden on the government, exasperating economic pressures during his rule. The Roman elite deeply resented the vast sums expended on Commodus' arena appearances, and they were appalled to see their emperor degrade himself as a gladiator. Historian Herodian captures this sentiment, stating, "But when he came into the amphitheater, naked, armed, and fought as a gladiator, the people witnessed a disgraceful spectacle. They saw an emperor, born of noble lineage and descended from victorious ancestors, not battling worthy foreign adversaries, but humiliating himself with vulgar and shameful displays." Commodus relished in the violent spectacle of the arena, where he would boast of slaughtering beasts and men alike for sport. In one notorious exhibition, he is said to have killed 100 lions, likely incapacitated through injury, binding, or drugs, in a single session. On another occasion, he massacred 100 bears, spearing them from the safety of a raised platform. He viewed the citizens of Rome as mere playthings for his entertainment, particularly evident in his grotesque gladiatorial games. Driven by a fascination with mythology and fantasy, Commodus orchestrated macabre reenactments involving disabled and disfigured beggars costumed as mythological beings who were forced to defend themselves with sponges instead of stones. Clad in a lion's skin and armed with a club, Commodus would emulate his idol Hercules, brutally beating these defenseless men to death before a crowd of thousands. This disturbing blend of reality and fantasy further showcased his cruel disregard for both human dignity and the stature of his office. Commodus was fixated on casting himself as the reincarnation of Hercules and spared no expense in his quest to shape public perception. One of his most audacious acts was modifying the Colossus of Nero, a 100-foot bronze statue of the former Emperor Nero, by replacing Nero's head with his own likeness, styled as Hercules. He also ordered the creation of marble busts, portraying himself in lion skins, distributing them throughout the empire to cement his divine image. The Great Fire of 191, which devastated much of Rome, presented Commodus with an opportunity to remake the city in his image. He proposed renaming Rome to Colonia Lucia Annia Commodiana, effectively branding the city as his personal colony. He even sought to rename the Senate as the Commodian Senate, and wanted the Roman legions referred to as the Commodianae. Commodus' megalomania knew no bounds. In 190, he issued an edict proclaiming his reign as the Golden Age and declared himself the new Romulus. claiming to have rebirthed Rome. His delusions extended to renaming the days of the week and the months of the year, after himself and his accolades. January became Amazonius. August was renamed Commodus. October turned into Hercules. And December was called notorious, meaning victorious. All other months and days were renamed to reflect various grandiose titles he had assumed. Poised and strangled. Commodus's reign became increasingly problematic for Rome's nobility, as his paranoia and erratic behavior ensured that no one felt secure, with even minor slights potentially leading to execution. His tenure was rife with real and perceived conspiracies against him. For the Roman New Year in 192, Commodus planned a highly unconventional public appearance. Eschewing traditional imperial decorum, he intended to address the populace dressed as a gladiator, not from the prestigious palace steps, but from the gladiator barracks. His mistress, Marcia, pleaded with him to reconsider and avoid further disgracing the imperial family, which only provoked his anger. He shared his intentions with Latus, the head of his Praetorian Guard, and his loyal servant, Eclectus, who both advised against the plan, citing concerns for his safety. On the same day, as Commodus was bathing, his young servant, Commodus, stumbled upon a tablet. When he encountered Marcia, she took the tablet from him, concerned he might damage it. To her horror, Marcia discovered the tablet contained a death list, with her name at the top. Realizing the imminent danger, she quickly informed Latus and Eclectus, who were also listed for execution. Together, they resolved to eliminate Commodus before he could act against them. Marcia attempted to poison Commodus's wine, but when he survived, they resorted to a more direct approach. They hired Narcissus, a wrestler and Commodus's personal trainer, paying him a substantial sum to strangle the emperor to death. The assassination of Commodus ushered in the rule of Pertinax, who aimed to restore the integrity of the Roman government by cutting expenditures and expelling corrupt officials. However, his reign lasted only 86 days before he too was assassinated. Following his death, the Praetorian Guard infamously auctioned the imperial title to the highest bidder, leading to a tumultuous year in which Rome saw 5 different emperors. This period of violence and instability continued until Septimius Severus ascended to the throne in late 193. His reign, marked by relative success, lasted until his death from illness in 211 in Roman Britain.